Stop! Please stop! Think about what you're doing! Don't send those!
2 in the morning. The espresso machine hissed like a snake in my kitchen, and I was fixing myself another cup because sleep had become a stranger. The house felt too quiet, too empty. Linda had been working late again, another quarterly review that stretched past midnight. I dialed her number. A man answered. "Hello?" Deep voice, confident. Not Linda. My hand tightened around the phone. "Where's my wife?" "She's busy right now." A pause, then a chuckle that made my stomach twist. "She'll call you later." In the background, I heard her laugh. That same laugh she used to save for me, now floating through the speaker like poison. "Who is this?" I asked, though I already knew. "Greg, her boss." "And you are?" The audacity hit me like a slap. This guy knew exactly who I was. "Keep her," I said, my voice steady as granite. "She's your problem now." I hung up before he could respond, savoring the silence that followed. Every streetlight in this city has heard a secret, and tonight I'd learned mine. "My name is Sam Mitchell. I'm 38. I run a tattoo parlor called Needle and Thread in downtown Millfield, and until 3 minutes ago, I thought I had a marriage worth saving." The rain drummed against the windows of our colonial house, Linda's dream home, bought with her tech sales commissions, while I scraped together every penny from my blue-collar business. Millfield used to be a mill town back when America made things. Now it's all glass office buildings and artisanal coffee shops, old money mixed with new hustle. Linda fit right in with the corporate crowd. Me? I was the guy who inked their rebellion on weekends and kept his mouth shut about their secrets. But secrets have a way of coming out. I fired up Linda's old laptop, the one she'd forgotten about when she upgraded to her company MacBook. Her Gmail was still logged in, password saved, auto-login enabled. Sloppy for someone so careful about her image. The messages went back 6 months. Photos, plans, intimate details that made my coffee taste like ash. Greg wasn't just her boss. He was her escape plan. They'd been meeting at the Riverside Motel every Tuesday and Thursday, right after her client dinners. They talked about me like I was furniture, something to be moved out when the time was right. "Sam's so predictable," one message read. "He'll never see this coming. Too busy playing with his needles and pretending he's an artist." My daughter Flora's footsteps creaked on the stairs. 14 years old, caught between childhood and whatever comes next. She appeared in the kitchen doorway, hair messy from sleep. "Dad? What are you doing up?" I closed the laptop, forcing a smile. "Couldn't sleep? Want some hot chocolate?" She studied my face with those sharp eyes she got from Linda. "Is everything okay?" "Everything's fine, sweetheart. Go back to bed." But Flora wasn't buying it. She'd always been too smart for her own good. She lingered for a moment, then disappeared upstairs. I heard her door close, then the soft glow of her phone screen under the crack. I reopened the laptop and started forwarding. Linda's sister, her parents, her college friends, every contact in her phone, every colleague in her office directory, the whole thread, messages, photos, plans. Let them see the real Linda, the one who planned her betrayals like quarterly reports. Send, send, send. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. The satisfaction was immediate and sharp. Public humiliation, no legal risk, just the truth, delivered at 3 a.m. to everyone who mattered in Linda's carefully constructed world. I was cleaning up the evidence when my phone buzzed. A text from Donnie, my best friend and owner of Riverside Boxing Gym. "You awake? Something's wrong with the security cameras at your shop. Might want to check it out." My shop. 20 minutes later, I was standing in the rain outside Needle and Thread, staring at my front window. Someone had spray-painted "Thief" across the glass in red letters. The security cameras hung useless, wires cut clean. Inside, my appointment book was gone. Client files scattered. My custom designs, the ones I'd spent months perfecting for a famous musician's tour, were missing from the safe. My phone rang. Linda. Sam. Her voice was ice. We need to talk. I'm listening. I know what you did with those emails. That was a mistake. Was it? You have no idea what you've started. The line crackled with her anger. Check your email. I opened my phone. 3 cancellations already. My biggest clients, the ones who kept the lights on. The message was identical. Due to concerns about intellectual property theft, we're terminating our relationship effective immediately. You framed me, I said. I protected myself. You want to play dirty? I wrote the playbook. The line went quiet. When Linda spoke again, her voice was different, colder. I'm filing for divorce, Sam, and full custody of Flora. After tonight's little stunt, that shouldn't be hard to get. She hung up. I stood there in my ruined shop, rain dripping through a crack in the ceiling, and realized something important. Linda wasn't just leaving me. She was trying to destroy me. The affair was just the opening move. My phone buzzed again. Donnie. Meet me at the gym, now. And Sam? She's not just cheating. She's going for the throat. Riverside Boxing Gym smelled like sweat and determination. At 4 a.m, it was empty except for Donnie and the heavy bags that had absorbed 1,000 frustrations. Donnie Martinez was built like a fire hydrant, short, solid, and reliable when everything else went to pieces. He'd been my friend since high school, back when we both thought the world owed us something. Sit down, he said, pouring coffee from a thermos. You look like garbage. Feel worse. I took the cup, letting the warmth steady my hands. How bad is it? Bad. Someone's been spreading stories about you for weeks. Theft, anger issues, financial problems. I heard it from 3 different people tonight. Linda? Her friend Danielle was at Murphy's bar last weekend, telling anyone who'd listen that you've been acting strange, paranoid. She made it sound like you were heading for a breakdown. Danielle Ross. Linda's best friend since college, real estate agent, and the kind of person who collected gossip like baseball cards. I should have seen this coming. There's more, Donnie said. Flora's been asking questions around school, about divorce lawyers, custody arrangements. Someone's been coaching her. The coffee turned bitter in my mouth. My own daughter. Kids get confused when parents start playing games, but Sam, you need to know. Linda's been paying Flora to keep track of you. Phone records, your schedule, who you talk to. I got this from my cousin who works at the phone store. The betrayal hit deeper than the affair. Linda had turned our daughter into a spy, bought her loyalty with whatever teenage girls wanted these days. New clothes, a better phone, promises of a bigger room in whatever new life Linda was planning. She's building a case, I said. Yeah, and doing a good job of it. I spent the next hour hitting the heavy bag until my knuckles were raw. Each punch carried a face. Linda's smug smile, Greg's arrogant voice, Danielle's poisonous whispers. The rhythm helped me think, helped me plan. By sunrise, I had a strategy. First stop, Highland Tech Solutions, Linda's office building. Glass and steel reaching toward the clouds, the kind of place where people wore their ambition like expensive cologne. I knew Linda's routine. Coffee at 7:30, first meeting at 8, lunch at the rooftop bar with clients who had more money than sense. I parked across the street and waited. Linda emerged at 12:15, but she wasn't alone. Greg walked beside her, his hand resting on the small of her back like he owned her. He was everything I wasn't, tall, polished, wearing a suit that cost more than my monthly rent. They climbed into his BMW and drove toward downtown. I followed at a distance, keeping 3 cars between us. They pulled into the Skyline Bar, the kind of place that charged $20 for a martini and called it Atmosphere. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, I watched them take a corner table. Greg's hands were all over her, and Linda was laughing like she'd never been happier. The sight should have hurt more than it did. Instead, I felt something colder. Calculation. I circled the building, found the parking garage entrance. Greg's BMW sat in a reserved spot, pristine and proud. I pulled out my keys and carved a message into the paint. Enjoy your ride, cheater. Simple, direct, untraceable. I was walking back to my truck when I heard the click of a camera phone. Smile, Sam. Danielle Ross stood 20 feet away, phone pointed at me like a weapon. She was 40-something trying to look 30, with the kind of smile that never reached her eyes. Just getting some evidence for Linda's lawyer, she said. Property destruction, stalking behavior. This is going to look great in court. Tell Linda I said hello. Oh, I'll tell her more than that. She was already typing as I walked away, probably sending the photo to Linda before I reached my truck. It didn't matter. Let them think they were winning. The best revenge required patience. That evening, I sat in my kitchen with Flora, trying to pretend everything was normal. She picked at her pizza, scrolling through her phone with the intensity of a day trader watching the markets. Mom's working late again, she said without looking up. I figured. She says you guys might be getting divorced. The words hung between us like smoke. Flora's voice was carefully neutral, but I caught the tremor underneath. What do you think about that? I asked. She shrugged. People get divorced. It's not that big a deal. But her hands were shaking slightly, and she still wouldn't meet my eyes. 14 years old, and she was already learning to lie like an adult. Flora, has your mom asked you to keep track of what I do? Where I go? Who I talk to? Now she looked up, and I saw Linda's calculation in her expression. She's just worried about you, Dad. You've been acting weird lately. Weird how? Staying up late, going through her stuff, following her around. She showed me the photo of you messing with Greg's car. The disappointment hit harder than any punch I'd ever taken. My daughter was repeating Linda's script word for word, probably for money or promises or whatever currency parents used to buy their children's loyalty these days. I see. Flora's phone buzzed. She glanced at it, then stood up. I have homework. She disappeared upstairs, leaving me alone with cold pizza and the ruins of my family. But anger was a luxury I couldn't afford. Linda wanted me to lose control, to give her ammunition for court. Instead, I pulled out my laptop and got to work. Greg's social media profiles were public. So were his wife's. Wait. Wife? I stared at the Facebook page, reading it twice to make sure. Gregory Morrison, married to Jennifer Morrison for 15 years. 2 kids in private school, a house in the suburbs with a white picket fence, and a golden retriever named Max. Greg wasn't just Linda's boss and lover. He was a married man with a family, playing the same game Linda was playing with me. I screenshot everything and started typing an anonymous message to Jennifer Morrison. Just the facts, with photo evidence. Let her decide what to do with the information. Send. My phone rang immediately. Linda again. You're making a mistake, Sam. Which one? There have been so many lately. Stay away from Greg. Stay away from my office and stop trying to turn Flora against me. I don't need to turn her against you, Linda. You're doing that yourself. What's that supposed to mean? Ask her how she feels about being your spy. Ask her what it's like having parents who use her as ammunition. Silence on the line. Then, you have no idea what you're dealing with. Enlighten me. I'm not the only one with secrets, Sam. Keep pushing, and you'll find out what I mean. The line went quiet, but this time, it felt different. Not angry, but threatening. Linda knew something I didn't, something she was saving for the right moment. I was still thinking about her words when my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Stop digging or things get worse. This is your only warning. The warning came at 2 a.m, but I was already awake, staring at the ceiling and listening to the house settle around me. Linda hadn't come home. Flora was at her friend's house for a sleepover, or so she claimed. For all I knew, she was reporting my every move to her mother from some hotel room. I'd spent the evening researching Greg Morrison's life, and what I found was fascinating. Highland Tech Solutions had been hemorrhaging money for 2 years, but Greg's department showed consistent growth. Too consistent. The numbers were too clean, too perfect. Either he was the greatest sales manager in company history, or he was cooking the books. A little more digging revealed the truth. Greg had been inflating contracts, creating phantom clients, and skimming money through a network of shell companies. Linda's department processed the paperwork. She wasn't just sleeping with him, she was helping him steal. My phone buzzed. Another anonymous text. Back off now or everyone learns about your tax problems. Tax problems? I grabbed my laptop and logged into my business accounts. Everything looked normal. Then I checked my personal returns from last year. Someone had filed an amended return in my name, claiming income I'd never earned and deductions I'd never taken. The IRS would be very interested in a small business owner who suddenly reported $50,000 in unreported cash income, then tried to write off personal expenses as business costs. Linda's insurance policy. If I pushed too hard, I'd find myself in federal court explaining money I'd never seen. But two could play that game. I opened a new browser window and started typing. Anonymous tip to the IRS about Highland Tech Solutions. Anonymous tip to the SEC about suspicious trading patterns. Anonymous tip to the local newspaper about corruption in the city's fastest-growing tech company. Send, send, send. If Linda wanted to escalate, I'd show her what escalation looked like. The next morning brought consequences. My phone rang at 7, Donnie, calling from the gym. You need to get down here, now. I found him standing in his office, holding a manila envelope. His face was grim. Someone dropped this off an hour ago, he said. Thought you should see it before I decide what to do. Inside the envelope were photographs, me and Donnie at the gym, me outside Linda's office building, me in the parking garage with Greg's car. But there were other photos too, ones that had been doctored. Me apparently meeting with known criminals, shaking hands with drug dealers, accepting envelopes of cash. These are fake, I said. I know that, you know that, but they look real enough to cause problems. The guy who dropped them off said I had a choice, cut ties with you, or watch my business license get reviewed by the city. What did you tell him? Donnie grinned, but it wasn't a happy expression. I told him to get lost. But Sam, they're serious about this. They're not just trying to destroy your marriage. They want to destroy your life. They. Linda's not working alone. This is too coordinated, too professional. Someone with resources is helping her. I thought about Greg's connections, his corporate network, the kind of people who could make problems disappear, or create them from nothing. Linda had chosen her allies well, but she'd made one mistake. She'd underestimated me. That afternoon, I drove to Highland Tech Solutions, not to confront anyone. That would be too obvious. Instead, I sat in the parking lot and made phone calls. To Greg's wife, who was now very interested in her husband's activities. To the IRS agent handling my amended return, who was curious about how someone could file paperwork without my knowledge. To a private investigator who specialized in corporate fraud. By evening, I had a plan. Linda came home at 9, carrying takeout bags and wearing the expression of someone who expected a fight. She found me in the living room, reading a book like nothing had changed. We need to talk, she said. About what? About this nonsense with Greg's wife, about the IRS complaints, about whatever game you think you're playing. I closed the book and looked at her. Really looked. When had she become a stranger? When had calculation replaced warmth in her eyes? I'm not playing anything, Linda. I'm just responding to the moves you made first. I didn't start this. You started it 6 months ago when you decided our marriage was disposable. Everything since then has been consequences. She sat down across from me, and for a moment, I saw a flicker of the woman I'd married. Tired, uncertain, maybe even regretful. "It doesn't have to be like this," she said. "We could handle this like adults. Divorce, split custody, move on with our lives." "Like adults? You mean like the adult who turned our daughter into a spy? Like the adult who framed me for theft? Like the adult who's been planning my destruction for months?" I was protecting myself. From what? From me finding out the truth? Linda's face hardened. "From you making this harder than it needs to be. I've seen what you're capable of, Sam. The anger, the obsession. I needed insurance." "Insurance? Is that what you call it? What would you call it?" I stood up, walked to the window, and looked out at our neighborhood. Nice houses, nice lawns, nice families living nice lives built on nice lies. "I'd call it war," I said. "And if that's what you want, Linda, then that's what you'll get." She was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke again, her voice was different. Colder. "You have no idea what you're up against. Try me. Danielle's been recording your conversations for weeks. Every phone call, every meeting, every threat you've made. We have everything we need to prove you're unstable." The betrayal hit like ice water. Danielle hadn't just been spreading gossip. She'd been building a case. Every confidence I'd shared, every moment of weakness, every angry word had been captured and catalogued. "Why?" I asked. "Because you ruined her business 3 years ago when you exposed her for stealing from your clients. Did you think she'd forget? Did you think there wouldn't be consequences?" The memory came flooding back. Danielle had been selling client information to competing tattoo parlors, helping them steal my designs and undercut my prices. When I exposed her, she lost half her real estate clients and had to declare bankruptcy. "She set this up," I said. "The whole thing. She manipulated you into the affair." Linda's smile was sharp as broken glass. "She didn't have to manipulate me, Sam. She just had to introduce me to someone who saw my worth. Greg. Greg appreciates what I bring to the table. My intelligence, my ambition, my potential. You just saw me as the woman who paid the mortgage while you played artist." The truth in her words stung more than the betrayal. I had taken her for granted, had let her success become background noise while I focused on my own struggles. But that didn't justify what came next. "So what now?" I asked. "Now you accept reality, sign the divorce papers, agree to supervised visitation with Flora, and disappear quietly. Do that, and we'll call off the dogs. And if I don't, then you'll discover that some fights can't be won." She left the room, leaving me alone with the ruins of everything I'd thought I knew. But as I stood there in the gathering darkness, I realized something important. Linda was right about one thing. Some fights can't be won, but they can be survived. And sometimes survival is its own kind of victory. I pulled out my phone and started making calls. If Linda wanted a war, I'd give her one she'd never forget. The next morning, I woke up to find my truck's tires slashed and Stalker spray-painted across my garage door. Subtle. I called a cab to take me to the shop, where I found more bad news. 3 more client cancellations and a visit from the city inspector about anonymous complaints regarding health code violations. Linda's campaign was accelerating, but I had news for her too. At 10:15, Greg Morrison's wife, Jennifer, walked into Highland Tech Solutions carrying a briefcase and wearing the expression of a woman who'd run out of patience. I watched from across the street as she marched past security, took the elevator to the executive floor, and presumably ruined Greg's morning in spectacular fashion. 20 minutes later, Greg emerged from the building looking like he'd been hit by a truck. His perfect hair was disheveled, his tie crooked, and he was carrying a cardboard box, the universal symbol of sudden unemployment. My phone rang. "Linda." "What did you do?" Her voice was sharp with panic. I told the truth. Novel concept, I know. "Greg's been fired. Jennifer's filing for divorce. She's taking everything." Sounds familiar. You don't understand. Greg was my protection. Without him, you're just another employee who's been helping embezzle company funds. How long do you think it'll take HR to figure out your role in his creative accounting? Silence. Then, you're bluffing. Am I? Check your email, Linda. I sent you copies of everything I gave to the FBI. Bank records, forged contracts, shell company transactions. Your name is on half of them. The line went quiet. I could practically hear her mind racing, calculating angles, looking for escape routes. What do you want? She asked finally. I want my life back. I want my daughter back. I want you to stop pretending you're the victim in this story. And if I don't, then we both go down. But here's the difference, Linda. I've got nothing left to lose. You've still got a career, a reputation, a future. Ask yourself which one of us has more to fear from the truth. I hung up and went back to work. My shop was a mess, but it was still mine. I spent the day cleaning, repairing, and planning. By evening, I had a new strategy. If Linda wanted to play chess, I'd show her what checkmate looked like. The first move was Danielle. I'd been saving the best for last, but recent events had accelerated my timeline. I drove to her real estate office just before closing, found her alone with her files and her schemes. Hello, Danielle. She looked up from her computer, and I saw recognition flash across her face. Fear, too. Sam, what are you doing here? Thought we should talk. About old times, about revenge, about how you orchestrated this whole thing to get back at me. She tried to look confused, but the performance was weak. I don't know what you mean. Sure you do. 3 years ago, I exposed your little side business selling client information. You lost everything, so you decided to return the favor. You're paranoid. Am I? Then you won't mind explaining these. I pulled out my phone and showed her the screenshots. Text messages between her and Greg, dating back 8 months. Plans to introduce him to Linda. Strategies for breaking up my marriage. Step-by-step instructions for destroying my business. You played them both, I said. Linda thinks she's in love. Greg thinks he's getting easy money, and you're pulling the strings on both of them. Danielle's composure cracked. You ruined my life. I exposed your crimes. There's a difference. I lost everything because of you. My business, my reputation, my marriage. Do you know what it's like to watch your whole world collapse? I'm learning. She stood up, pacing behind her desk like a caged animal. Linda deserved better than you. She's brilliant, ambitious, successful. You were holding her back. So you decided to set her free? I decided to give her options. What she did with them was her choice. And Greg? Was he her choice too? Or did you recruit him specifically? Danielle's smile was ugly. Greg was perfect. Married, ambitious, unscrupulous. He wanted money. Linda wanted excitement. I just introduced supply to demand. And now they're both unemployed and facing federal charges. Casualties of war. I studied her face, looking for any trace of remorse. Found nothing. You know what the funny thing is? I said. You could have just moved on, started over somewhere else. Instead, you spent 3 years planning this elaborate revenge, and all you accomplished was destroying 2 innocent people along with me. Innocent? Danielle laughed. Linda chose to cheat. Greg chose to steal. I just gave them the opportunity. And Flora? What did she choose? For the first time, Danielle looked uncomfortable. Kids adapt. She'll be fine. She's 14 years old, and her parents are using her as ammunition in their war. But I guess that's just another casualty, right? I pulled out a manila envelope and placed it on her desk. What's this? She asked. Copies of everything. Your text messages with Greg, your recorded conversations with Linda, your financial records showing payments from Highland Tech Solutions. Your ex-husband might be interested to know why his alimony checks were so irregular. Danielle's face went white. You can't prove anything. I don't have to. I just have to create reasonable doubt. How long do you think your real estate license will survive an ethics investigation? How many clients will stick around when they find out their agent has a history of selling confidential information? She sat down heavily, suddenly looking older than her years. What do you want? I want you to call Linda. Tell her the truth about your little puppet show. Tell her how you manipulated her into destroying her marriage for your revenge. She won't believe me. Then make her believe you, because if you don't, these documents go to the state licensing board, the FBI, and every real estate blog in the city. Your choice. Danielle stared at the envelope like it was a snake. You've become quite the manipulator yourself, Sam. I learned from the best. I left her sitting there with her choices and drove home. Linda's car was in the driveway, which was unusual. She'd been avoiding the house lately, probably staying with friends or in hotels. I found her in the kitchen, sitting at the table with a bottle of wine and an expression I couldn't read. Danielle called, she said. Did she? She told me some interesting things. About how this all started. About who really orchestrated what. I poured myself a glass of wine and sat down across from her. And what do you think about that? I think I've been played. By her, by Greg, maybe even by you. Not by me, Linda. I've been reacting to moves you made first. There's a difference. She was quiet for a long moment, staring into her wine like it held answers. Flora's upstairs, she said finally. She wants to talk to both of us. About what? About how tired she is of being caught in the middle. About how she just wants her parents to stop using her as a weapon. The guilt hit like a physical blow. In all my planning and scheming, I'd forgotten the most important thing. My daughter was watching everything, learning lessons about love and loyalty and betrayal that would shape her for the rest of her life. We screwed up, I said. Yeah, we did. Linda looked up, and for the first time in months I saw the woman I'd married. Tired, hurt, but still there underneath all the calculation and anger. So what now? I asked. Now we figure out how to fix this. All of it. Starting with Flora. And us? Linda was quiet for a long moment. I don't know if there is an us anymore, Sam. Too much has happened. Too many lines have been crossed. By both of us. By both of us, she agreed. We sat in silence, two people who'd loved each other once upon a time, before ambition and resentment and other people's revenge had poisoned everything good between us. Linda? Yeah? For what it's worth, I'm sorry. For taking you for granted, for not seeing your worth, for letting us drift apart until someone else looked better than what you had at home. She nodded, tears threatening. I'm sorry, too. For the lying, for the scheming, for turning our daughter into a spy, for letting Danielle's poison convince me that destroying you was the only way to save myself. So where does that leave us? I don't know. But maybe we can figure out how to end this without destroying each other completely. Footsteps on the stairs. Flora appeared in the kitchen doorway, looking younger than her 14 years. Are you guys done fighting? She asked. Linda and I looked at each other, then back at our daughter. We're working on it, I said. Good, because I'm tired of choosing sides. I just want my parents back. She sat down at the table with us, and for the first time in months, we looked like a family again. Broken, battered, but still recognizable. The war wasn't over. There would still be consequences to face, legal problems to solve, relationships to rebuild or abandon. But sitting there in our kitchen, with rain pattering against the windows and our daughter between us, I thought maybe we could find a way forward that didn't require total destruction. Maybe revenge wasn't the only option after all. Maybe survival was enough. The family meeting lasted until midnight. Flora, it turned out, had been keeping her own secrets. She'd recorded some of the conversations Linda had asked her to have with me, but she'd also recorded Linda coaching her on what to say and how to say it. 14 years old, and she'd already learned that the only way to survive her parents' war was to gather ammunition against both sides. "I never wanted to spy on anyone," she said, tears streaming down her face. "I just wanted you guys to stop fighting." Linda and I sat there, staring at our daughter, realizing how badly we'd failed her. In our rush to destroy each other, we'd forgotten that she was watching, learning, and suffering. "I'm sorry, baby," Linda whispered. "I'm so sorry." "We both are," I added. "This isn't your fault, none of it." But the damage was done. Flora had learned that parents lie, that love can turn to hate overnight, and that the people who are supposed to protect you might use you as a weapon instead. The next morning brought a new crisis. Greg Morrison was found in his hotel room, unconscious from what the paramedics called acute alcohol poisoning. Not life-threatening, but serious enough to land him in the hospital. His wife Jennifer had cleaned out their joint accounts and filed restraining orders. His career was over, his family was gone, and the FBI was building a case that would probably send him to federal prison. Linda got the call at 7 a.m. "He tried to hurt himself," she said, hanging up the phone. "Because of what we did." "Because of what he chose to do," I corrected. "We didn't force him to embezzle money or cheat on his wife. But we destroyed his life. He destroyed his own life. We just exposed it." But I could see the guilt eating at her. Linda had convinced herself that Greg was her salvation, her escape from a marriage that had grown cold and predictable. Now she was learning that her white knight was just another flawed human being who'd made terrible choices. The phone rang again. This time it was Danielle. "We need to meet," she said. "All of us. There are things you need to know before the FBI starts asking questions." We met at Murphy's bar, the kind of place where secrets went to die and nobody asked too many questions. Danielle looked like she'd aged 10 years overnight. Her perfect real estate agent facade was cracking, revealing something desperate underneath. "Greg's talking," she said without preamble. "He's trying to cut a deal with the feds, and he's throwing everyone under the bus." "What does that mean for Linda?" I asked. "It means she needs a lawyer, a good one. Greg's claiming she was the mastermind behind the whole embezzlement scheme." Linda went pale. "That's not true." "Doesn't matter. He's got documentation that makes it look true. Forged emails, fake contracts with your signature, bank records showing deposits to accounts in your name." "Accounts I never opened," Linda said. "Try proving that in court." I studied Danielle's face, looking for tells. She was scared, but there was something else. Satisfaction, maybe, or relief. "You set this up too," I said. "The embezzlement scheme. You didn't just introduce Linda to Greg. You gave him the idea to steal from the company." Danielle's smile was sharp. "Greg was already skimming money when I met him. I just suggested he could use a partner with access to the accounting systems. And when it all fell apart, you made sure Linda would take the blame. Linda made her own choices. You manipulated her into making them. I gave her options. What she did with them was up to her." Linda was staring at Danielle like she was seeing her for the first time. "You never cared about me at all. I was just another weapon in your war against Sam. You were a means to an end. And now? Now you're a liability." The words hung in the air like smoke. Linda's best friend, the woman who'd been her confidant and advisor for months, had just admitted that she'd orchestrated Linda's destruction as carefully as she'd planned mine. "So what happens next?" Linda asked. "Next, you disappear," Danielle said. "Leave town, change your name, start over somewhere else, because if you stay here, you're going to prison." "I won't run." "Then you'll fall." I looked at Linda, seeing the woman I'd married underneath all the schemes and betrayals. She'd made terrible choices, but she'd been manipulated into making them by someone who'd spent years planning revenge. "There's another option," I said. Both women looked at me. "We tell the truth, all of it. Linda cooperates with the FBI, provides evidence against Greg and Danielle, and takes responsibility for her part in the scheme." "That's career termination," Danielle said. "Better than prison." "You'd really do that?" Linda asked. Help me after everything that's happened? For Flora's sake, yes. She needs at least one parent who's not behind bars. Danielle stood up, her facade finally cracking completely. You're both fools. You think the truth will set you free? The truth is that you're all guilty. Linda embezzled money, Sam stalked and harassed people, and I just connected the dots. When this is over, you'll all be destroyed, and I'll be the only one left standing. Will you? I asked. I pulled out my phone and showed her the screen, recording app, running for the past 20 minutes. Everything you just said is now evidence, I said. Your admission of manipulation, your confession to orchestrating the embezzlement scheme, your threats against Linda. I think the FBI will be very interested in this conversation. Danielle's face went white, then red with rage. You set me up. I learned from the best. She lunged across the table, trying to grab my phone. I pulled it back and she lost her balance, falling against the bar. The bartender looked over, concerned. Everything okay here? Just fine, I said. Ms. Ross was just leaving. Danielle straightened her clothes, trying to recover her dignity. This isn't over. Yes, it is. She left, and Linda and I sat in silence for a long moment. So what now? She asked. Now we clean up the mess, together if you want, separately if that's what you prefer, but either way we do it honestly. Linda nodded. Flora deserves better than what we've given her. She deserves parents who put her first. Can we do that? Put her first, I mean? We can try. We left Murphy's bar and drove to the FBI field office downtown. Linda walked in carrying a briefcase full of evidence and a lawyer I'd helped her find. She spent 6 hours telling them everything about Greg's embezzlement scheme, about Danielle's manipulation, about her own role in the fraud. When she came out, she looked exhausted but relieved. How did it go? I asked. They're offering immunity in exchange for my testimony. Greg and Danielle will face federal charges, but I'll just lose my job and my security clearance. That's better than prison. Yeah, it is. We drove home in comfortable silence. Flora was waiting in the kitchen, doing homework and pretending not to worry. How did it go? She asked. It went well, Linda said. We're going to be okay. All of us? Linda and I looked at each other. The marriage was probably over. Too much had happened, too many lines had been crossed. But maybe we could still be a family, just a different kind of family. All of us, I said. Flora smiled for the first time in months. 6 weeks later, Greg Morrison pled guilty to embezzlement and fraud. He got 5 years in federal prison. Danielle Ross was indicted on conspiracy charges and lost her real estate license. Her trial was scheduled for the following spring. Linda and I filed for divorce, but we did it quietly, without lawyers or acrimony. We worked out custody arrangements that put Flora's needs first, and we both committed to being better parents than we'd been spouses. I reopened Needle and Thread with a new partner, Donnie, who turned out to have a talent for business management. We specialized in cover-up tattoos, helping people erase their mistakes and start over with clean skin. Linda took a job with a nonprofit organization, using her skills to help other people rebuild their lives after corporate fraud. The pay was terrible, but she seemed happier than she'd been in years. Flora started therapy to deal with everything that had happened. She was angry, hurt, and confused, but she was also resilient. Kids are tougher than adults give them credit for. As for me, I learned that revenge is a dish best served with a side of justice. Destroying people might feel good in the moment, but building something better feels good forever. The last laugh, it turns out, belongs to whoever's still standing when the dust settles. And I was still standing.